Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
Voters spoke. It passed with 55% support. It's more popular than the president, more popular than the governor, more popular than any Congress member here in Colorado.
We understand that, yes, marijuana possession and use is legal. We don't want the commercialization in our communities.
It's a little bit like the entire world just turned 21 and is going to the bars for the first time.
Colorado's Amendment 64 was passed on November 6, 2012, carrying 55% of the vote. It legalized the production and sale of marijuana and all marijuana-related products in the state for recreational purposes, and went into effect on January 1, 2014.
We wanted to hit the January 1st target. You want to be ahead of the pack, and we're excited about the possibility of being able to have Colorado as a whole as a market.
This particular shop, Mile High, was one of the very few that opened on January the 1st. And that was one of the most exciting times I've had in my entire business career.
The Flow, it's a really good sativa.
It's a
delicious.
Candy.
Got the Skywalker, all the edibles, oh boy.
Got the hashes and dab rigs and glass pieces.
This place had lines going, literally for the first couple of weeks, you just non-stop people coming in. Folks that drove all night to be in here on January the 1st, for example, from Indiana, Kentucky, Connecticut, Florida.
We actually have a map back there with people put pins where they're coming from, and it's all over the world.
It's been a real eye-opener because the stereotypical thought is, well, it's going to be some young guy or young gal that's coming in, and it's really not the case. Average age, I would say, is 40 to 42 years old. Males and females, pretty evenly divided, and from all walks of life, all ethnicities, everything.
This program in of itself is incredibly unique. To my knowledge, it's probably the only one in the world that is just specifically dedicated to both medical and retail legalization. Because it's so unique, we really didn't have a set of best practices to borrow from other jurisdictions.
Running one of these state licensed marijuana businesses is very, very risky. And we have to accept the fact that that this is still federally illegal. And the federal government is basically saying, we're going to give you all room to operate, but you need to have a robust, comprehensive state regulatory framework with licensing, and you need to be controlling for public safety.
Colorado's regulatory standards are dense and ever-changing. They cover everything from how product is packaged to how extra product is disposed of, from surveillance and security to product tracking.
So are you looking for something that's more of a sativa, like the Blue Jay ones, or are you looking for something that's more like a traditionally stoned? I like this one.
I've tried kosher, I've tried Blue Jay.
You haven't tried this one? Why not try this one today? Yeah, it's really good.
I'll try that one.
You want to do the half-eight?
Yeah.
One day, this type of container is acceptable. The next day, nope, you can't work with that. You have to have another type. So you have to be very flexible with this industry.
We've also taken, I think, a contemporary approach to governance to fill a contemporary approach to drug policy, and a lot of that has really been focused on our willingness as a department and as a government agency to really solicit feedback from a lot of different stakeholders.
As we are learning together about this business, and it's just fascinating. We are literally inventing a new wheel. We are creating a brand new industry.
One of the stickiest issues for Colorado has been the regulation of marijuana edibles. Opponents of the edibles market are concerned about how products can be clearly demarcated as having marijuana once they are out of their original packaging.
The candies, the cookies, the gummy bears, the sodas. I just can't understand why are we putting marijuana in so many different products that kids like.
The edibles industry has maintained that it is overly expensive and unnecessary to add on-product markings. As with many other issues related to legalization, the state has convened a work group. Interested parties who provide recommendations to legislators to aid them in writing any potential new laws.
In the Constitution, we defined marijuana. Edible products are part of that definition of what a marijuana product is. Therefore, any recommendation to prohibit any category of edible products is likely unconstitutional.
If you have items once outside of the original package that are no longer identifiable to an adult or a child, you have a serious set of health and safety and enforcement risks.
If we were to say you had to mark a product, what we have to identify what that means.
This is about marking the product itself. There's technology that can be used that I frankly don't think people have really reached out to and looked at.
In my opinion, no matter what we put on them, accidental ingestion by children is going to happen if the parents leave them in the reach of their children.
I could look and see, again, if there's an organic product that I could label my cranberry. I mean, is that where we're at?
There is this stigma surrounding selling marijuana that it's like drug dealing, and it's the opposite. I mean, it's so highly regulated.
One of the newest additions to Colorado's regulatory arsenal is testing for THC potency. It went into effect in January of 2014, and all retail marijuana must be tested. This is a change from the state's medical program, which did not require testing. The state also tests for contaminants, and is beginning to find ways to test for potency within edibles, not just to make sure they adhere to a threshold, but to make sure that the THC is evenly divided throughout the product.
This lab has a lot of power. We are the gatekeeper for pretty much the entire industry. All retail marijuana products have to be tested, and if they fail for contaminants or if edibles are over a certain limit, that product may have to be destroyed. In order to analyze a sample, we have to extract the THC out of that bud. So we weigh out a very precise amount of the flower, put that into a test tube, add a precise amount of a solvent, which in this case is mostly alcohol, and we mix that up, and then everything is extracted into the solvent, and we're analyzing the solvent. This is an entirely new thing, this mandatory testing program. There's really no baseline. You have to remember that marijuana, the industry basically came out of garages and basements.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
And we're broadcasting live from the PetPain.com studios for today, Thursday. It's another edition of the Full Melt Show. The question today is the pill getting swallowed? I want to know, is that pill getting swallowed? Gulp it down. Just plug your nose and swallow already, for crying out loud. What are you waiting for? You really just swallow it. Hold your nose. It's not so bad if you hold your nose and just swallow it. Fuming mad today. Oh, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off because we've got a bunch of mamby-pamby little infant toddlers running the state legislature. That's what we got up there. And I've got, smoking gun evidence of just how mamby-pamby toddler they are. These are people that can't even figure out how to frickin' pave the damn roads in this state after they robbed the fund for eons. Robbed it to pay for other stuff. I mean, the people who put up the transportation department in the first place said, we got to have a way to fund this, so let's earmark a way to fund it. And they did that through a gas tax. And then, hey, you know what? What do you think about the idea if our group of people gets together in the legislature and says, let's divert the gas tax for this other popular cause that we want to have done? Let's divert it. Or maybe just the governor says, we're going to take this money out of this part of the budget and put it in this part of the budget. It's totally within his rights. I mean, that's what the governor does. He creates the budget. He presents a budget. So I'm just talking about here in Michigan, and it's similar in every other state. I'm just pissed off about what's going on here in Michigan because they're a bunch of little frickin' 2-year-olds. I don't like that medicine. No, I Poopy. Oh, it just makes me so pissed off. Look, we pay you guys good money. You're full-time legislators. You could be a part-time legislature like they got in the other Midwestern states around here. No, you're going to have full-time salaries, full pensions. You little fat bastards. Sitting up there on Capitol Hill. You know, I am mad because in a landmark way, and after a court order, there's a history to this. Maybe we'll talk about it after the break. I don't have too much time before the break now. There is a program in Michigan that, you know, is in charge of licensing and registration for the medical marijuana program. It's the Department of Licensing and Regulation. It's a new department created by the governor, and it took over the old Michigan Department of Community Health, which was originally what the voters placed that in their hands. It's right in the Medical Marijuana Act. The Michigan Department of Community Health is the one that's going to administer this program. And the governor changed it. It's one of the first things he did when he got in office. He's like, okay, we're going to move this around. Don't like that being handled that way. And so this panel, there's a panel there that hears new conditions, and we've added one new condition since 2008, and that is PTSD. And there's some more history around this bill that I'm pissed off about. Or this not bill, it's a proposal. It's a request. It's a petition to this commission to add another new qualifying condition. And you know what it is? It's autism. And that autism petition was denied hearing by that panel. And the petitioners had to go to court to force them to hear it. And once they did, the Attorney General left out all the damn supportive documentation, the science that backed up their claim that proved that autism is affected in a positive way by medical marijuana. And they had to delay the vote. And then they had the vote some 2 weeks later after they had a chance to consume all of that scientific proof, and they voted 4-2 to add it as a condition. You know what happened today? Ringy-ding-ding, mammy-pammy, mama, baba, poo-poo, I don't like that medicine. No, medicine's bad. Medicine's bad. The Laura administrator refused to sign the paperwork adding the condition. He actually denied he pulled a pocket veto like he should have any say in the matter, for crying out loud. Oh, I'm so pissed off. We'll get into that. Another thing, the MRC reared its ugly head today. We'll talk about that in Michigan. It's a horrible day.
You're getting the full melt.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at canalock.com. Visit canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
Get growing with GrowMax. Indoor, outdoor, beginner, or a warehouse full of Gavitas. Probiotic organics, or huge production with Max Power monster aeroponics systems. We can help you rock it. YouTube GrowMax with 2 X's. Customer service is why we're blowing up. And I'm Dave. My cell number is 906-221-2111. We also specialize in electrical and HVAC and new double-ended bulb technology. 906-221-2111. Get growing. GrowMax.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's States, one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki,
Sacred Elements.
raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dordt Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the Big Cup competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
You can hear us here on thefullmelt.com Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Really easy to sign up and get a copy of the show every day in case you haven't got a chance to listen live. Just click on the iTunes link right there at the top of the page and subscribe. It's really simple to do. Spittin' mad over officials in Michigan rejecting the recommendation to add autism to medical marijuana's law here in this state. Out of Lansing today, reported by MLive.com, I shall read to you this. A Michigan official has rejected a citizen's petition and review panel recommendation to add autism to the list of conditions that qualify patients for medical marijuana use under state law. Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Director Mike Zimmer, in a final determination released Thursday, cited a, quote, concerning, end quote, lack of scientific evidence regarding medical marijuana use by autistic patients, specifically by children. While the record is replete with sincere and well-articulated testimony on the potential benefits of medical marijuana to autism patients and, in particular, parents of autistic children, several troubling concerns remain, he wrote. Michael Camorn, an attorney representing Lisa Smith, the Michigan mom who filed the autism petition, said supporters had submitted, quote, overwhelming research, end quote, and peer-reviewed articles. That's the highest standard, mind you. That's the gold standard of scientific research and data proof backing claim. This peer-reviewed study. So I'll read it again. Overwhelming research and peer-reviewed articles to make their case. He likened Zimmer's determination to, quote, reefer madness, end quote, suggesting the department director did not understand the science himself. It is a real disservice to all those parents who were hopeful that they could be protected to treat their children with autism, Camorn said. The Medical Marijuana Law Review Panel, in a 4-2 vote last month, recommended approval of the petition brought by Smith, who has said cannabis oil helped improve the behavior, sleep, and eating schedule of her severely autistic 6-year-old son. The parents I've talked to are passionate and adamant that this represents a dramatic improvement in the quality of life for them and their affected children, David Crocker, a medical marijuana doctor and panel member, had said before the vote. The 2 dissenting members, including Chief Medical Executive Eden Wells, had expressed concern over the effect of marijuana on the developing brain, which they said could outweigh the potential benefits for autistic children. Zimmer, in his final determination, noted that the petition was not limited to severe cases of autism, which he had said made the dearth of clinical studies especially concerning. The petition failed to acknowledge the direct impact on children, he continued, suggesting the prevalence of autism diagnosis diagnoses that could lead to a significant increase in kids seeking certification for medical marijuana use. Excuse me. Zimmer also questioned whether marijuana-derived oil that parents described using during public testimony is currently legal under Michigan voter-approved medical law. A 2013 Court of Appeals ruling puts limits on permissible forms of usable marijuana, and clarifying legislation is not yet advanced in the legislature. You see what I mean? They can't figure out the frickin' roads. How are they going to figure out medical pot for kids?
I don't like that medicine. No, I don't want it. No.
Little babies. They're not only little babies, they're making other little babies suffer, you bastards. Don't you get this? Don't you understand what you're doing by your inaction? You're not only retarding the entire governmental system surrounding action in this place, in this state, but you're hurting people along the way for your stupid political ideal. And it makes you all rat bastards, the whole lot of you, whether you're for this or not. By allowing this to happen, you're rat bastards. If these were your kids, this would never happen. It wouldn't. The medical marijuana panel, whose members are appointed by Laura, were provided with public testimony and submitted research before voting to approve the autism petition. But Zimmer, who had final say in the process, you rat bastard, denied the panel's recommendation. I'm disappointed and I'm frustrated. I think that obviously he used a lot of words to explain an inconsistent and subjective decision in opposing the panel's recommendation, said Camorn. The goal of the petition was to extend legal protections of the medical marijuana law to parents who want to treat their autistic children, he said, suggesting Zimmer ignored peer-reviewed articles that supporters had submitted. And he clearly did. If these parents know or believe that it is working, they're going to do it, he said. We're asking them to be removed from the battlefield of the losing war on marijuana. The Medical Marijuana Review Panel rejected a similar autism petition in 2013 in what had been called a final decision. Smith's petition was initially denied upon submission by Laura, but she successfully sued to force reconsideration. Only one treatable condition has been added to Michigan's medical marijuana law since voter approval in 2008. The panel, which was previously disbanded and reformed because members had not been appointed properly, voted to add post-traumatic stress disorder last year. And it's shameful what's going on in our government. It's not just in this place, it's in many others. I mean, I'm allowed to display my dismay over the crackpot kangaroo court government that we have operating on our behalf. You know, I sound like a Republican. I'm just not. I'm not a Democrat really either, although I will lean that way. Am I what would be considered a liberal? I don't consider myself liberal. I consider myself progressive. I think there's a big difference. And it seems that people like progressive Bernie Sanders, because I think he's very progressive. He's also considered by many the candidate closest to the Socialist Party. So again, if that makes me a liberal, label me. I don't give a rat's ass. I really don't. What I care about is what happens to people in this country. That's what I care about. I don't care about these labels. They mean nothing to me, and they should mean nothing to you. What this, gobbledygook of a government has managed to do, and circumstance perhaps, because I don't think there's any conspiracy behind it. I think it's just people doing their jobs and reporting the news and what's out there and what's available. People get used to the gears and they grease them in their favor. And pretty soon you got this kind of crap going on in government where, popular vote is overruled by people with money and agenda. Special interest. They call it special interest. I hate to use that term because it's so overused. I mean, it's colorful. It's descriptive, but if it gets overused, it's meaningless, isn't it? I like to choose words that have impact. I try to, anyway. And I think when you use cliches, the whole idea of something being cliche is it kind of loses its impact because you're more paying attention to the cliche than what the cliche is pointing to. So I'm really upset. And I suppose it's a foregone conclusion. I was going to be upset. There was no way I was not going to be upset after watching these inept people bobble this football around at the expense of others, at the great expense of others. It doesn't matter how many. In this case, it happens to be a lot. And these people took a lot of effort and time and fortitude. I mean, this took courage and money and persistence. It's taxing to go through this process, to go in and testify, to organize and get the people necessary to assemble the data, the hard data. This is a rigorous program that you have to go through if you're going to suggest a new condition through the medical marijuana program. They have tight controls. And they managed to make a submission that is inside of all of those controls. Otherwise, they would just deny it altogether. They wouldn't even hear it. In fact, they tried to do that based on other, issues not related. But when the court finally said, no, you got to hear this issue because your former panel that denied it wasn't a legitimate panel. So it's not been denied because the panel wasn't legit. Now that you formed a new panel, you have to hear it. So they did. And they voted 4-2 to approve. And then the guy at the head of Laura says, not so fast. I say no. Na-na-do-do-ba-ba. You're a rat bastard, Mr. Zimmer. And I'll say it to your face. You might think that you're doing something good and you're helping kids out. You're not. You're doing the opposite is what you're doing. You're doing it in an uninformed way. I mean, these people, this panel heard what I told you is peer-reviewed evidence. Other hard science reports pointing to the direct benefit afforded children victims of autism relief from the symptoms of their illness. And it's quick. Dr. Bogner said the other day on the program at the Cannabis Cup in hopeful breath that this condition would be finally added by the signature of Mr. Zimmer, which was denied today. He told us that in severe cases of autism, such as his son, when this happens, when you give them both CBD and THC, that you end up in a situation where those conditions are impacted within 45 minutes. You have a different child on your hands, and it has nothing to do with them being stoned or high. It has to do with their brain operating in a more normal way, and he explained the science all behind it. He had my head spinning, not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe that I didn't know this already. I mean, he explains, and we're going to have him on. Right now, I think he's off. He's out of the country at the moment. But Dr. Bogner, I'm going to get on. And I'm going to get a researcher, a scientist on from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology who's doing study and research in this arena. And I'm going to find a couple of other people that are experts in their field to back up their point of view on science, their own independent point of view on science on this. And I'm going to bring them on this show. And I'm going to blow your mind, is what I'm going to do. Because the hard part about telling this story is that it's highly technical. And so in order to understand the story, you've got to be able to understand the players of the story, the central characters. And those central characters are complex. They're not simple characters. They're complex with unusual names. And then when you start to draw the relationship between them, that's even harder to describe. So the hard part about telling this story is telling it in a way that people can consume, that's not talking over their heads, in a way that makes sense to them, in a way that makes them understand that what you're reporting to them in an anecdote, I guess supposedly in a way that's more in layman's terms, that they're getting a truthful, factual report. And the hard, like I said, the hard part about that is getting people to understand what's actually physically happening here. Because that's where the truth lies. And I understand it. I've got that capacity. A lot of people don't. I would say that the vast majority of consumers today are so, they're so, what's the word, of instant gratification. I mean, for everything. That, excuse me, a bit of a cold. even if they had the capacity to understand, that they would not take the time to do it. Because, it's too complex. I got to think too hard. I don't want to do it. Next. So the hard, and I'm going to find a way to do it, a way to package this in a way that most people can consume and understand and walk away with a useful tool, some useful information. Because, man, what he told me on Sunday in that 2-hour show was directly related to autism and medical marijuana. So he gave me the science behind that. Even though I pushed back against it, I'm like, oh, you're talking too much science. No, nobody understands it all. Give it to us in layman's terms. Stop, take it off the chalkboard and put it down in a way that people can absorb. And he kind of did. And I helped him out with more analogy. And then I started to understand what was going on. And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And then he went into other science. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, we're going into break, da-da-da-da-da. And then what he was trying to point to was a causal connection between food source and autism and vaccination. It seems like it's wholly off the subject of medical marijuana, but it's clearly not. It's got that link with the CB1 and CB2 receptors in the brain and how they interact with THC and CBD. And what that does in an autistic child's head, and why that kid has that condition present in the first place is directly related back to the MIT researcher has found in her study. Brilliant information talking about how the food source, this food supply, the mass food supply in the country, is directly to blame for a good deal of the autism present in our society today. And there's some products that came online, and I'm just speaking. I don't have the evidence behind this yet. I'm just speaking about what I've been told. When I get this evidence in front of me, and it's coming, I think it's going to point to a company that's making food products and agricultural products that are designed to increase massive production. And there are residual problems with stuff that's in that food supply. It's genetically modified. And I think that we're going to be able to establish a smoking gun link there. That's what I'm hoping to do. Not because I've got an axe to grind, or I think that there's anything bad about agricultural production or massive food. Those are obviously all good things. But if it's handled in a way or done in a way that causes harm to the population, especially the kid population, don't you think that's something that would be a huge story? I think it would. We'll investigate that later.
You're getting the full melt.
Get ready, let's go. Hey now, na na na. Oh, hey now, let's go. Yeah, I've got style. I'll make it wild. I'll change it up and switch it up so versatile. I'll be myself and I'm gonna let everybody know.
We have the latest styles to mix it and mash it. So make it your own and bend the trend. JCPenney. When it fits, you feel it. During the JCPenney Back to School Hot Sale, get an extra $10 off when you spend $25 or more with coupon. Nike, Converse, Levi's, and other exclusions apply.
Get growing with GrowMax. Indoor, outdoor, beginner, or a warehouse full of Gavitas. Probiotic organics, or huge production with Max Power Monster Aeroponics systems. We can help you rock it. YouTube GrowMax with 2 X's. Customer service is why we're blowing up. And I'm Dave. My cell number is 906-221-2111. We also specialize in electrical and HVAC and new double-ended bulb technology. 906-221-2111. Get growing. GrowMax.
Don't miss the first ever cannabis competition this year as the prize contest moves from Amsterdam to Jamaica. That's right, it's all Jamaican fun now with the big cup competition in Negril this November. Get your best travel accommodations now at JamaicaPot.com. Pack your beach bong and swimsuit and party down at the warm sandy beaches of Negril, Jamaica for the first ever big cannabis event this year. Do it in style or come have fun on a budget. Best travel prices now at JamaicaPot.com. That's JamaicaPot.com.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pets.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
You know, we've been working really hard in this country. Working really hard to affect both criminal justice reform, to end the war on drugs, really. You got to start somewhere, though, and I think the war on marijuana is probably a good start. And it's been in that effort. It's been in that cause that you found various and sundry methods, ways of accomplishing that. There's decriminalization. There's lowest law enforcement priority initiatives. There's outright local legalization initiatives. I mean, this all fights against a bigger battle, the state law and then against the federal law, especially in states where there are no laws modifying the issue or the condition of marijuana. But, we found these various and sundry positions about how that should be done if it's going to be done. And I think, I don't think it would be an easy argument to make that marijuana is not a popular issue these days. It clearly is. And that the overwhelming, and I'm talking in the 80 percentile, at least, if you want to really, if you just want to take any padding away, take the bare bones numbers, at least you got to say it's in the 70 percentile range. That's still over 2/3 of the nation polling positive about marijuana reform as an important issue. And it is. It's not just because of the marijuana subject. It's because of the criminal justice subject. It's because that whole system is being ground down by this horrible machine that's ineffective. I mean, it's not sustainable. It costs more to run than it is than it has benefit. In fact, it has no benefit. It's demonstrated zero benefit. In fact, if anything, it's demonstrated negative benefit only. The only thing that's come out of the war on marijuana's drug war is a negative effect, a net negative effect. Any positive thing that they could glean out of this, that they could claim was made on the marijuana war, would be vastly overshadowed by its cost. I mean, speck like a salt grain in the bottom of a giant cooker. You can't even see it unless you get really close. You know what I'm saying? You can't even tell it's there. It's not even a drop in the ocean. It's so tiny. And so it's negligible. You could say it's completely ineffective and negative only. So, that being said, I have to tell you a little bit of history now. For people who are not familiar in Michigan with the way that the medical marijuana law got done here, you have to look at, there were some local things that happened, city to city, and then there was a safer, coalition for a safer Detroit, or words similar to that effect, that passed a medical marijuana law in Detroit. And that was kind of a first here in Michigan outside of Lansing and Ann Arbor's decrim positions on small possession amounts. And those are, probably, liberal college towns be considered that way. But that's been around for a while. This would be the first change in that arena is Detroit. And they did it. They managed to pull it off and demonstrated that not only was their claim correct about the popularity on that subject, but that they had the organizational capacity to pull it off and make it law, and they did. And the guy that was principally behind the Coalition for a Safer Detroit, or principally involved with it, certainly spearheaded a lot of stuff that they had going on, was Tim Beck. Now, Tim Beck then went on to form the Coalition for a Safer Michigan. And I worked well with Tim, because right after the law came on board, I went and sought out Mr. Beck and shook his hand and talked to him about how these things got done, and wanted to try and work with him in establishing a future pathway for this marketplace. And that I represented the media and was a truth seeker. And that he seemed to have a lot of the truth on this subject, and I wanted to help him spread it. And, there's a listserv, there's various communication methods by which, a lot of this stuff gets done. And the thinkers on this all kind of chit-chat and pass around news and information and add on and, it's like a think tank. Some guy puts a subject out there and people add to it, collaborating. And then they manage to decide, in a loose sort of way, some policy direction or response to some other policy direction that's impacting them negatively. So long story short, there's been some tension because Mr. Beck is not a stable man. Mr. Beck is, from my point of view, has substance issues outside of marijuana. We won't get into that. But he certainly isn't what I would consider a stable man from a mental standpoint. And that's just my own assessment after having dealt with him for a long period of time. He's not going to come on the show and say something otherwise, and he's most certainly welcome to come on and defend himself. I'm not trying to beat him up. I'm just giving you my opinion of him. But my opinion got worse of him when this year when we sat down politically to organize and get together, personally kind of excluded me because I told him I didn't like him, and I told him why. And he kind of held that against me, and so didn't want to invite me in on the political meeting that established the board members of what is now MI Legalize. But I'm glad I wasn't there because I probably would have stood up and got on a soapbox and pointed my finger at Mr. Beck and embarrassed the hell out of him after he decided to reveal the fact that he wasn't going to be a part of that effort, that he was going to be a part of a different effort, and that leads me to the story that came in the paper today. So I wanted to give you that little bit of background. And I was hoping that Rick Thompson would have a chance to join us. He said he would here at 7:30. I was hoping he could come on and talk about this issue. I'm hoping that he still will. Perhaps he's called and I haven't seen, but I haven't seen him ring in. I've texted him. I haven't heard back from him. Hopefully he'll. I know it's Jamie Lowell, his good friend's birthday today. Shout out to Jamie Lowell, happy birthday. So maybe they're celebrating and it's distracted him. But the story today was on the MRC, and I heard about this yesterday. I heard, glimmer that there was going to be a press conference from the Michigan Responsibility Council. And these are a group, when I was talking earlier, referencing different ways, different methods of doing this, that really, I believe, and I've always held out the idea that, if you look under the sheets, if you get the camel's nose under the tent and sniff out who MRC is, because they're real secretive, they won't tell you who they are in way of contributors, because it is a nonprofit organization that is organized pretty much as a political action committee. It's a PAC. And so they've just been kind of standing on the sidelines and working with legislators and encouraging marijuana this and marijuana that. But when I've always said that these guys are going to mirror Responsible Ohio, and I think a lot of the other people in the community have had that same impression, that they are the oligopoly model of legalization of cannabis. And since Responsible Ohio is getting some headway, and I said this before, when they find some success, if they do, and I think they will because they got the money to make it happen, and they did, that you'll see MRC make this announcement. Because previously they've denied that they were a petition organization. Today, that changed. And part of what I told you before is that I don't like this Tim Beck guy, and I haven't. I can smell a bad fish from a mile away, and I always kind of smelled Tim as a bad fish, so to speak. And I think today's story is a way of kind of maybe pointing to that. Really. Just trying to look the story up now because I'm having a hard time finding it here. No, that's not the one. That's not the one either. That's not the one. That's not the one. This is the one. This is reported today by the Detroit News because there was a news conference, which I heard about yesterday, was unable to attend in Lansing today. And this is what happened. This according to Gary Heinlein from the Detroit News. Heinlein? Sorry, Gary, if I butchered your name. Dateline Lansing. The leaders of a marijuana advocacy group say they're prepared to sponsor a ballot proposal reforming Michigan's medical marijuana law in 2016 if lawmakers don't approve legislation this year allowing provisioning centers and edible forms of cannabis. Booyah! Isn't that what I said? I mean, I hate to be, I don't like to do that. I don't like to be, I told you so, but I did, I told you so. I mean, I'm just trying to show you that, I don't know, maybe I don't have to show you anything. The Michigan Responsibility Council has decided to, quote, set aside efforts for legalization, end quote, of marijuana use and focus on helping lawmakers shape pending House legislation, Council Board Chairman Paul Welday said Thursday. That's today. Welday said 2 bills in a House committee headed by Rep. Mike Calton, a Republican from Nashville. That's Nashville in Michigan. It's a city in Michigan. Seems to be moving in a positive direction, quote unquote, towards legalizing centers where various forms of medical cannabis could be purchased, as well as a state regulatory regime to oversee growing and distribution of marijuana. The Responsibility Council has drawn up a draft plan it would prefer, but also supports efforts by Calton to craft reform legislation. Welday said the council would have to finalize its own plan and begin circulating petitions towards a ballot measure early next year. Aha! Did I say that? If lawmakers are unable to act, pressure from yet another angle. Calton's committee drew up legislation that passed the House late last year, but was stymied in the Senate in December by a late blitz of criticism from law enforcement agencies as well as opposition from key lawmakers. The prospects for such reforms remain uncertain this year. Majority Leader Arlen Meekhoff, is among majority Republicans in the Senate who've expressed little enthusiasm for expanding provisions in the Medical Marijuana Act voters approved in 2008. I'm going to finish this story after the break because I think it's an important one, and we'll give it a little stab. It's yet to come here on the Full Melt Show. Don't go away.
You're getting the Full Melt.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, The allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at canalock.com. Visit canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. I'm still spitting mad. I'm not going to be not spitting mad for a minute. I'm just spitting mad. The prospect for such reforms remain uncertain this year. Majority Leader Arlen Meekhoff is among majority Republicans in the Senate who've expressed little enthusiasm for expanding provisions in the Medical Marijuana Act voters approved in 2008 in Michigan. That law has been troubled by wrangling over the legality of marijuana dispensaries and questions about whether it restricts the use of cannabis to smoking or allows the use of other forms. Advocates say edible forms, such as droplets, are the only appropriate way to use it for treating children who suffer from seizures, autism, or other disorders. Strike autism off now. If the Responsibility Council ends up pushing a medical marijuana ballot measure in 2016, it could result in 3 proposals involving the drug. That's 3. Now, mind you, potentially at this point in Ohio, there seem to be only 2 making their way towards that goal. 1 already having met the burden of collecting enough signatures, but still has the barrier, the obstacle, the barricade placed by the legislature in Ohio. Was it SRJ7, SJR7? I think it's SJR7 or 4. What is it? I don't know. It's some other bill that they placed on the ballot themselves saying, hey, you can't legalize marijuana. Oh, yes, you can, but you can't do it this way. You can't do it in a way that enshrines in the Constitution the only people who can produce a product, much like they did the casinos there. Now, this pressure is coming. I mean, if the Responsibility Council ends up pushing a medical marijuana ballot measure in 2016, it could result in 3 proposals involving the drug. 2 groups are circulating petitions for proposed votes on legalization of small amounts of marijuana for recreational use. Those groups, as I've described to you before, are MI Legalize, who are currently collecting signatures to legalize marijuana in 2016 and to support and bolster the Medical Marijuana Act by allowing things like oils and medibles, taking their illegality away in this state, effectually giving the police nothing to work with on charging somebody so they can go back to doing something important like putting the criminals in jail, the ones that are really doing harm to society, the robbers, the murderers, the rapists, the carjackers, those people, the home invasion artists, are the people who are snatching purses and hurting old women in public places. These are the people that deserve jail bars. Certainly not people walking around with some cannabis in their pocket. These people are generally harmless. This is where it gets stabby. This is where it leaves a crook in my craw. Tim Beck, remember him? Yeah. A senior advisor to the organization. Oh, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Now, Mr. Beck, I told you, was the guy that was part of the Safer Detroit organization and got medical marijuana done on a citywide level in Detroit back before 2008. And then in 2008, managed to attract enough attention and money, given that success, to get medical marijuana done here in Michigan. in a very Swiss cheesy way, but he got it done. And always backing patience. It's always been about patience, right? Well, now he seems to not give a rat's ass about patience. Screw those patients. They only represent 10% of the population, Mr. Beck told me. They only represent 10% of the cannabis population. They're small potatoes. They were introductory course to the main course. And the main course is retail marijuana. And I've always had a bad sniff around Tim Beck about this subject because retail marijuana is a particular flavor and fashion to him that he wasn't revealing during his course through Detroit and Michigan with the legalization campaigns for medical marijuana. And now, mind you, we didn't legalize it here in either drive. We didn't take away the rules. We didn't take away the drug rules around the drug war. What we did was we gave them a limited, badge of immunity. As long as you could stand behind that shield, you were protected from those laws. It didn't work out that way in court. And so now, Mr. Beck, senior advisor to MRC, the Michigan Responsibility Council, said the regulatory regime proposed by the group also would provide a good format for oversight of recreational marijuana use if one of the two ballot measures passes. The Responsibility Council is still not revealing its financial backers. Does that sound familiar? Hint, hint, Responsible Ohio. But Beck said it would be able to fund a ballot campaign if necessary. So he's warning you, hey, we got the money to do this. Mr. Legislator, don't you want to do it first? That's what Mr. Beck is doing. But now, he's doing it in a monopoly way, isn't he? He's doing it in this oligopoly fashion. And this oligopoly fashion completely, if I'm not mistaken, if I've looked at what these guys are after, they want to repeal and replace the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act with this new Responsibility Council version of legalized marijuana using its oligopoly. That means there will be some limited sites owned by these people, run by these people, profited by these people only. And it would eliminate, completely uproot the 2008 Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, principally and chiefly spearheaded by Mr. Tim Turncoat Benedict Arnold Beck. And I will stand on Mountain High and reveal him for the traitor that he is. For throwing the very patients that he paraded before the legislature saying medical marijuana is the way of the future. It's very important that these chronically ill, stricken with disease, patients in Michigan have access to this relief. And he was right. But now he's willing to throw them under the bus. Another cliche. Shouldn't use it. Throw them under the bus. Okay, throw them under the train. Because I would say that the analogy of a train is a much more accurate depiction of what is going to be retail cannabis in this country. It's going to come like a train, and it's already doing that. The rumble on the tracks is already so strong, it threatens the very existence of the track. The track can't sustain it. It's going to come and tumble. I don't think anybody's prepared for it. I don't think they are. And perhaps, if 2016 comes and goes and nothing happens with retail cannabis and medical marijuana in a bunch of states, and it doesn't change the hearts and minds of legislators on a collective basis as a pool in Congress, then you can call me a fool. You can paint me the town jester hanging up on the wall of the town with the bells and the pointy shoes and the colorful, crazy clothes and the clown makeup. I'll wear the whole 9 if I'm wrong. Because I'm not. And I think that it's important to understand who the players are in especially local. All politics are local. It's important that you understand who the players are and what they represent. And I've always thought that Mr. Beck was somebody to be wary of. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I could never put enshrine my trust in Tim Beck, ever. I just couldn't do it. There's a few people that stand out in my head like that I know. He's principal amongst them. And he's done nothing but prove me right on that note. I mean, he didn't even become a part of what he kind of X'd me out from. He kept me, he deliberately, actually, they invited me to this MI legalized thing when it was started. By mistake, because there's another Steve Green. They were inviting him, but they invited me by mistake. And then when I said, hey, what do we got to do? Oh, well, we didn't mean to invite you. We invited the other one. We meant to give it to the other one, not you. Well, that's all right. I'll be there anyway. No, you won't. We can't let you come. That was Mr. Beck doing that speaking. Because he knows I'd call him out for the turncoat he is. He knows that when he made the announcement he was going to back the MRC, because he kind of let on that. That's what he's going to. When I'm going to back the MRC, that I'd call him out, and he'd walk out of there with a target on his back. And he clearly did anyways.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.